Welcome, everyone. This is an interview with Alfonso Bucero. We're discussing 5 ways rituals support portfolio and project management. Rituals are an essential part in our lives, and understanding the power of rituals strengthens portfolio and project management. Today, we have the honor to speak with portfolio and project management expert Alfonso Bucero. Welcome, Alfonso. You might want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, I have been working and engaged in project management for the last 36 or 37 years. So I came to project management as an accidental project manager, as many of us. And then I have been engaged in IT projects and change management projects in different industries. And I spent some years on 5 different multinational firms like Fujitsu, Digital Equipment Corporation, and then ICL, HP, and lastly, I created my own company, Bucero Consulting, which purpose is how to change the attitude of managing projects in organizations. So I try to deliver some consulting services and project management, portfolio and program management services. And in fact, I have collaborated several times with your organization through Mr. Triana, who is a good friend of mine. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's an impressive resume. A little while ago, I published, with your help, a blog on the 5 rituals that support portfolio and project management. And today I would like to discuss these 5 reasons and hear your response to each of them. And it'd be wonderful if you could maybe color your responses with real-life examples.
Okay.
So for the public, if you want portfolio and project management to last, listen to these 5 reasons why rituals help you strengthen PPM and what your PPM expert has to say about them. And this expert is Alfonso Bucero today. Let's start.
Yeah, thank you.
The first ritual is that rituals are events that represent moving from a current to a new state. Just like in birth or marriage, rituals often act as a bridge between the past and the future. How do you see that in portfolio and project management?
Well, I think the first ritual in terms of establishing or understanding that project portfolio management is needed in an organization is just to see, the trend or the situation about we have too many projects. So it is one current situation in many organizations. So my first, I think the first ritual I consider is just to be aware of, okay, we have a problem because we have too many projects and we don't know how to establish different priorities and how to select them and how to move forward. So this...
Go ahead.
It's always a difficulty, getting not only the understanding, but also the agreement about the management as a team.
So you're saying, sorry for interrupting. So you're saying the ritual from the current state is knowing you have so many projects, and the future state would be
how to select the right projects and doing all the projects right. So all the selected projects getting it done right. Because in many occasions, what I discover is in several customers I consulted for, they were running projects that were unuseful, and they were projects that were not adding value to the organization. So this is one of the things is just how to establish a mechanism in order to decide in which project to invest.
All right. Now, if a ritual is from a moment to move from the current state to the new state, to the new way of working, does that happen in one meeting for PPM, or is that several meetings and several moments?
In my particular experience, it consists of several meetings. I mean, it's a real teamwork management effort. So it's one of the things that are changing. For instance, when you are thinking about a project and you are thinking about the need to find a sponsor for project portfolio, what the organization needs is just how to get all the managers working together as a team. Because obviously, from every business unit's perspective, every manager believes that his project or her project is the most important. I mean, is the project who is adding the maximum amount of value to the organization. Yeah. No, you need to select my project because it is so strategic. No, it is I'm coming from sales. I am selling services to customers. My project is much more important. So getting into discussion was, first of all, it's funny because I got a lot of fun seeing and observing the different perspectives and different angles and different views from executives. But on the other hand, is how to get an agreement, how to agree upon a common systems, allowing them to make dynamic decisions. That is, my point of view, the objective of portfolio management.
And in your experience, do you see some sort of repetition or some sort of process that people go through that will always end up towards that new state? Because it's basically a change of mindset, isn't it? What you're describing.
It's always giving the example of my personal life. For instance, I have a portfolio of 5 components. Those 5 components are my wife, my 3 children, and my dog. So
very important.
Or define projects, programs, and also operations with all the components of the family. So when you are changing your mindset, you need to establish priorities. So it's one of the things that people need to understand is not all the projects, programs, or components from my portfolio can be done at the same time with the same resources, with the same effort, using the same investment or same money. So this is effectively such a mindset. And also this mindset, as you told me, were repetitive all the time during my life. I was lucky because I have consulted many financial organizations, and in financial organizations, usually most of them are focused on money because they are managing money, but sometimes they are not conscious or unaware of the type of projects or initiatives they are taking are not the right ones, because they are not adding value to the organization or to the customer. So definitely some mindset changing.
Wonderful. I believe also that implementing PPM characterizes a new state of working, right? It's new roles, it requires new responsibilities and processes. Yep. And I think rituals can be an important tool to introduce this new way of working. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, processes are the key. Obviously, discipline is first in terms of how to understand not being able or not following the principle of customizing one by one, but finding out what is in common and how to establish a common procedure and common set of steps to be followed by the organization. So I had the opportunity of a couple of years ago of consulting a company, in fact, collaborating with professional.
With practical thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And I can remember it was a telecommunications industry, So the thing is that they were thinking about, okay, well, we have a portfolio because we have just a list of projects or programs in an Excel spreadsheet, but we're not able to see what is the real good project to invest in, because the added value and the final return was not as expected, right? So the thing is that I maintained several meetings with all the managers, trying to discuss and to get any type of small agreement, step by step, because those things needs to be done step by step, my personal experience. And through the discipline, we define it, a common process. But then you need to sell inside the process, inside the organization. So it was the wonderful thing was that I was proposing a model, but the model was built up by the customer with the real experiences from the customer, with the real life experiences among the difficulties and conflicts generated among departments. Because obviously, when you are trying to explain it to define any other discipline or method, or in this case, to define a simple process, some people agree, but other people disagree, or they cannot see the same thing, because they are thinking usually not only out of the box, but also out of the department metrics or measurements. Yeah. So it was always a challenge, but it works.
It works. That's wonderful. Thank you. Now, the second ritual, or the second reason why rituals strengthen PPM, I believe, is that rituals are essential in maintaining structure and security in the project life. And you explained me before when we discussed this that that working towards a PPM framework often results in resistance, right? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. I think, obviously, as I told you before, project portfolio management for me is a dynamic decision-making process. So I am trying to sell to executives this dynamic process in terms of, okay, well, every time you are making a decision about investing on this one or investing in that one, you are getting a commitment. So you are determined not only by you, but also from the organizational perspective. So the thing is just how to conduct or to drive, like when you are driving a car, driving all the portfolio management in the same way, in the same path together. So establishing some deadlines, some milestones. And for me, one of the main milestones is just how to, what type of projects or what type of initiatives do we have in our organization, and how to make a decision in order to set up or to establish this initiative will be converted into a project when this happens and that happens and this happens and so on and so forth. And getting that agreement is like everybody from different angles are getting the nouns and unknowns from every project. So, or nouns and unknowns for any initiative. So it is easier for them just to establish a mechanism. One special or personal example was in that organization, the organization I mentioned before about the communications company in Chile, was how to define or how to differentiate between a project and a program. And I needed to establish a mechanism, and we discussed it. And this type of mechanism was converted into a small tool. It was something like an Excel spreadsheet and graphical representation and so on. So those are the small steps that needs to be followed, So
that's to create a structure and security in the project life, basically.
Exactly, because they see results. I mean, the principle or the lessons, number one, learned by my point of view is you need to be able to get smaller and smaller but tangible results in front of the organization, because every manager, I mean, I was working with upper managers from strategic departments, and some of them were belonging to the committee, the steering committee or the board of directors. So they didn't have enough time. So they say, well, I need to be as profitable as possible, optimizing the time that they invested into discussions and meetings and so on, in order to create, as you said, security, but also tangibility in terms of, okay, well, we have been discussing for 1 hour or a couple of hours, but finally we got a result, we got an agreement. Step number one, click, done. So,
and that encourages people to enhance in working in the framework and continue the process.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the best practices for me is just when something has been accomplished and this step has been agreed, I am not obliging, but suggesting, what about being presented by you, Mr. Manager X, in front of the rest of the managers in the meeting? So it is like the feeling like they are building up, all the steps to get it something together.
And if I understand that correctly, you use little rituals to basically make people engage and motivated and part of this process, right?
Exactly. I
That's
think
wonderful.
Sometimes, I need to take care because I am very, very emotional. So sometimes, as you perfectly know, emotions can generate some problems or obstacles or challenges in front of people. But most of the time, one smile during the process and this type of personal approach was helping me.
Unexpected, or not expected, but accepted.
Accepted. Exactly. One of the things that were wonderful is that one of my objectives is for every session I need to at least achieve a very, very small deliverable. So the person who are attending the meeting can see, okay, well, we are not very, very slow. We are not very, very quick or very fast, but at least when we were discussing something, I have a piece of paper, a piece of document, or whatever to take away. So
doesn't it make the entire PPM more human as well?
Yeah,
because it's of course a very technical approach. It's and you often work, I think, with technicians or engineers or people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so sometimes they are looking for more elaborated things or more complicated things when from the technical point of view. But when you are talking to upper managers, what they are looking for is, okay, well, I don't care about the technical details. What I care is about the results and how to...
The heart, yes.
Yeah, and also how to sell internally the idea, so how to get the buy-in about it is exactly what they need or what we need, not just me for my organization, but also for the organization, for the enterprise as a whole. And
I think, sorry, you continue.
No, I just finished.
And I think that's also where rituals can be so powerful and so helpful, because it makes anything more human, and it helps people to we'll go back to it in a little bit. It helps people pause and reflect on the past and move towards the future.
Absolutely. It was also one great opportunity for all the attendees to management meeting to understand much better what were the metrics and the objectives from the different organizations. It is one of the pending subjects. It is curious because people belonging, I always believe that people belonging to board of directors or whatever would have a very, very detailed idea about the needs for the others and so on. And I was absolutely surprised.
Wrong.
Yeah, how people learn among each other in those meetings. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you for telling us this type of story, because I have found something in common and we take advantage of this or that or whatever. So it was fantastic for me.
Wonderful. The third reason that rituals can strengthen PPM is that the power of rituals lies exactly in what it represents. So rituals are basically special moments. Like, it's a moment to stop, reflect, as I said, and move forward. It takes people actually for a moment away from the everyday flow of the project or their everyday work, and it places them in what we call a sacred, magical space, which is which are beautiful words for what sometimes a boardroom is, but it's usually what we do is we take people from their everyday desk to a special room, and whatever that room is or wherever that session is, it can be in the forest, in the beach, or just in a hotel. It's a special new place where people get time to actually disconnect a little bit from work and adjust their thinking, adjust their mindset, as you were saying, and move forward in a different way. That's what rituals do. Yeah,
absolutely. I think, in fact, some people, Karen, are considering like something like a reward just to go outside the organization. And they say, okay, well, it will be fantastic. We can spend 1 hour, a couple of hours, or middle day, working around. Not exactly in the office, but around or in another special room or hotel.
Just a different environment, that's it.
Exactly, different environment, and having the opportunity to talk each other and to share thoughts and so on. So one of the things that I do is, obviously, as I told you, those sessions are a set of sessions, sequential mode from time to time in order to get all the milestones. But after every session, I am trying to, at the beginning of the next one, I am trying to share with them what was learned from them in the
previous one.
Not only about the result, but also about the process, because you know perfectly that in every organization, the pace in which a meeting is getting done is absolutely different, because the attitudes, because the culture, because the discipline, and so on. So people was very respectful in many organizations, and you can see that. I think one of my objectives was getting people obtaining a little bit of fun for every session, right?
I think this fun or this session, which is actually a special event in their everyday work life, gives meaning to the transformation process, and It helps people realize that they're transitioning from one phase to another, from one way of working to another way of working, and move towards the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's very important in PPM, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. It is absolutely. I think when you are building processes in organization, I think everybody feel much better if they feel like owners of that process, right? So
right. Yeah.
People say sometimes that this external consultant is proposing us a process or whatever, and obliging us to go into the funnel, right? And this funnel, is not enough narrow. It is probably very, very little, and we cannot move forward. So people appreciate that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Besides the ritual of a course or of taking people away from the office, what other rituals have you seen in organizations?
Well, the thing is that usually some organizations are giving a special recognition to the people who are moving forward. So they say, well, it's one of the things, obviously, when you are trying to deal with an effort like implementing project portfolio process in an organization, it is a project itself. So I always ask for one sponsor. So one of the things that I am trying to negotiate with the sponsor is what about establishing some small recognitions, metrics for every deadline when people are getting aligned, because I always try to get the buy-in from the sponsor and telling him or her, okay, we need to get people much more aligned among departments. So it's not only the results of implementing project portfolio, is the other objective is just to how to get all the processes and all the needs from business units aligned aligned to the strategic plan of the organization. So, these type of words are helpful on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So awards for recognition for doing good work, for example.
Yes.
I assume celebrating milestones is an example as well.
Yes.
And how do projects? How do companies celebrate it?
For instance, in Chile, they have a very good wine, right? So so we use it. The wine, the typical wine from there, just and giving to everyone a cup, a glass of wine by the end of the meeting. But also, they say, well, we have another people ask it. Okay, we would like to know something about the standards. So one of the things is just please do not consider that we need to accomplish 100% the standards at the very beginning. It will be an ongoing process, but the standard, those are the principles that need to be, or you need to be getting familiar with, so it is, those standards are something you are much more familiar. At the moment we are moving forward, it will be easier, to advance and so on. So I think it's, again, the human aspect of, embracing all the type of things we are moving, because obviously implementing portfolio management is also a change management project at the same time.
Yes, it definitely is. Yes.
Yeah, and some people doesn't consider like that. They say, no, it's a question of implementing process. No, sorry, but processes are done by people, and without people, processes doesn't work.
And we expect these people to change their behavior, right?
Exactly.
Changing behavior, we know from personal experience, is very difficult. Stop quit eating chocolate, stop smoking, that kind of thing is difficult.
Absolutely.
In the workplace, the same thing.
Absolutely, I agree. They were not used to use several processes. In fact, we started from scratch in some of them.
You mean change management processes?
Yes.
Yeah. And these are very important when you implement a new way of working, like portfolio management. Yeah.
In fact, communications was the key. It was one of the items in the agenda of the board of directors were the project portfolio management process implementation. So one of the things that every organization needs to take care of is implementing project portfolio processes is important for the organization. And I am not telling you like a external consultant. It's the CEO who is telling you about it. It is important. Take care of it, put effort on it, and you will be achieving results from it.
Yeah, I think you make a really nice bridge to the fourth powerful reason for strengthening that rituals can strengthen a PPM, because that's that rituals indicate a sense of renewal. So they are moments that can create a shared identity, a new identity, that can achieve specific goals, or communicate values, or communicate new behavior or important messages. That's exactly what rituals can do.
Yeah.
What have you seen in your work?
Well, the thing is that one of the things, I am perhaps not very marketing oriented person, but I am using from time to time some marketing stuff. And one of the things that we used was to create the brand of project portfolio management project inside the organization. So I try to create the sense of belonging from this particular project. So obviously I asked the CEO to video record something like 30 seconds, telling to the organization, okay, well, you know me, I'm the CEO from this particular company, and I would like to get you involved and following the criteria that this project of implementing project portfolio management needs to have in our organization. So please take care of it. You will be measured by it, and we'll be supporting you in all the stuff. And we have an external consultant who is Alfonso Bucero, who is helping on that. So please follow their instructions at every moment. So it was a very, very wonderful video because they projected, they hung it up into the website, and they got published for all the employees, and from time to time the executives were using it. Okay, so it was not the external consultant, it was the CEO who considered that portfolio management
so important
for the organization. So it was considered like a strategic initiative.
That's wonderful. And do you think that that tool of the video of a CEO has been used more often in that same organization afterwards?
Yeah. Sure.
To communicate messages.
I think it was created something like, I didn't say a culture, but an attitude in terms of, okay, well, you need to get your management buy-in. You need to get engaged, that management part of it, of this manager, explaining to the people what is expected from the organization. Because I think when the expectations are set up to the very high level, from high-level executives, everybody is, breaking down all their efforts. So in this particular case, it was working well. Obviously, it was in some cases inconsistencies. It wasn't a path of roses. I mean,
no change process is a path of roses.
Exactly. I found a lot of difficulties because there were people who were listening to me, other people was hearing me, or not participating in the meetings at the beginning. But in 1 year, 1.5 years, that was exactly the more or less as an average the process of implementation. I think it's is following the change curve, right?
So you're discussing basically resistance in the organization. Did you use some rituals to take away some of the resistance? What rituals did you use?
It. I mean, one of the things that I am trying to do is just giving an explanation daily, face to face, to the sponsor of this project, and trying to get the sponsor engaged and say, well, we need to work as a team. So I will be supporting you, but you have the authority and the power in your organization, not me. So if I am giving to you some clues, please put it in place.
Use it.
I will be supporting you. So sometimes we'll be successful, other times we cannot, but people understand the change if people do the change if they understand it. So we need to make a special effort on change management in this project, and it was working very well. So we used some forms and templates for that in order to assess the resistance of the people and so on. But basically, communication was the key.
It is.
Yes. Yeah.
It is. It sounds like a very successful project, but you might have worked in some other projects where the use of rituals was less successful. Do you have any example?
Yeah, sure. I was running another project in the financial industry in Spain, in the north of Spain, where people were completely going directly to implement a tool. So they They understood that portfolio management processes were necessary, but well, please stop defining more processes because we have enough processes and we need a tool. So they had Microsoft project server in the organization, and I needed to work in parallel. So one of the curious things were that at the moment I was setting up the tool and trying to put information in it, they were conscious about the lack of information that they have in the middle. For instance, the lack of solidity from the strategic plan. They didn't have a solid strategic plan. They saw that they were investing a lot of money in very, very unimportant projects for the organization. They were not adding enough value. They were doing very risky projects, but very expensive because they were software investments and so on for delivering solutions that were not well sold to their customers and things like that. So in that particular case, I was in that customer for a couple of years because at the beginning the customer directions were mandatory to
implement PPM.
Yes, to implement a tool. Number one, implement a tool.
A tool or PPM in general?
No, it's a tool. Yeah, they will be a tool. So the thing is just they didn't have any type of processes. So obviously, at the same time, I needed to define some small processes regarding collecting information about the projects and trying to put in common the different amount of type of data regarding the project and defining a common record. And I mean, smaller and smaller, but the culture was very low. I mean, also the culture was very low in project management. So the managers didn't understand very well the role of the sponsor. So they used common sense and intuition that sometimes is okay, but not all the times. So.
With a low culture, you mean they had very little, there was little focus on the management of projects in the organizational culture?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing is one of the thing was low level of maturity in project management, number one. On the other hand, they immediately understood that they were investing money in the project they didn't need. So they changed their mentality, and it was the only way in which we could penetrate into their strategy a little bit, helping them understand the strategic plan and so on and so forth. So it was, and also I had another story with a very big company. I can't remember the name of the company, but it's a very, very well-known company on starting up new shoppings for shirts and special things to wear by men or women. I cannot remember exactly the name, but it's very it's multinational.
A clothing store.
Yeah, something like that. And they were absolutely disorganized. Okay,
Disorganized.
They also didn't want to dedicate much time to think and to reflect upon processes. So the thing is that I used the tool, for instance, Microsoft project.
To define the difference between a project and a portfolio?
To define the difference between project, program, portfolio. Creating a list about all the initiatives, trying to see if all the amount of information that they had regarding different initiatives were more or less having something in common. And finally, I demonstrated to them after 2 or 3 weeks that they needed to sit down and to discuss and to put priorities. They had too many things in the pot and they couldn't cook together. So it was another lesson learned. So I found different ways to penetrate to the startup. So obviously the ideal one is dealing with people who are ready to think and to reflect upon where we are, where we can achieve or where we go. But in other occasions, the process is the inverse.
Yes, wonderful. Now, what rituals often do is rituals illustrate identity changes. And that's actually the fifth powerful reason of why rituals are such a good support in portfolio management, because they're marked by 3 phases: separation, transition, and incorporation. And what you've been describing is that you first separate the mindset of people, and you put them in a transition phase to later incorporate the framework of project portfolio management.
Yeah.
And that's basically also, you basically give them a new hat, don't you? You give them a new identity.
Yeah.
Of from working in a, you were saying, a pot that they couldn't cook in, to being chefs, like to cook really well.
Absolutely. I think it's the main principle is being a little bit flexible, but applying a discipline. I mean, getting some definitions and measuring what have you achieved, but what will be next, and how to be ready to move forward, because this is a complete learning process during all the project portfolio management implementation lifecycle. At the moment, you are defining how to select the projects and how to select and prioritize and so on. When the projects are in execution, and they need to figure out, okay, what is the amount of information that people need during the execution of the project programs or operations, and how frequently they need to work each other, because initially people understand that all the components in the portfolio needs to get it done. And sometimes, some cases, what happens, perfectly, is that in the middle, you need to eliminate, delete, or stop any of the components, or otherwise you need to add more components because they are regulatory, or because the law, or because conditions of the government, and so on. So it was another challenging part in the second phase of the project, how to get people using the process and the discipline to manage projects in the portfolio, how to not only report, because reporting was
the easy part,
really working more or less well with the tools and so on, but the discipline about, okay, what would be the checklist in order to incorporate, or in order to eliminate a project from the portfolio because the project or the component is not adding value. So it took time. So it was really, really not very hard, but not as hard as the first phase, but also a little bit tough.
Yeah. And we were discussing how rituals create identity changes. How do you see that in people? If we look at the human side of portfolio management, how do you see people develop or evolve during the process of change?
Well, at the beginning is obviously people were rejecting, resisting in front of the change because they didn't know, and they believe an external consultant is here and obliging my managers to define a process to measure us and to control us, and we don't have any flexibility to move, and we will be absolutely square-minded and so on. But it's one of the things that I was trying to deal with is the relationship with people. Okay, so I try to. I mean, obviously, I wasn't the friend of anybody, but
you can't be the friend of everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But the relationship was better and better, and also sometimes culture is the challenge, because you know that there are more open cultures, and you need to deal with even after hours or after the work. Yes. And other people stop and disappear, and see you the next day. So there is no way to establishing a dialogue or conversation or
create collaboration.
Yeah, but the evolution was good. The evolution was slow, but good. And one of the things that helped was, in one side, recognition of all the achievements. Yeah. And on the other side, it was the encouragement from the CEO. Yeah, because the CEO was always giving them a reminder. Okay, remember, you are doing a special effort. This effort, is worth it, because it will be easier for us and will be more effective managing decisions and making decisions. So it's effectivity and good results for the whole organization, not only for you.
Right. So basically, because the CEO was on top of it, that helped a lot. You're saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. I think all the. I mean, I did some research on that about the causes of failure in many implementation projects on portfolio management. And one of the most of them are due to lack of sponsorship.
Right.
Not the right sponsors. It's not the unique. Obviously, there are many other factors. But it's one of the key factors.
And it doesn't have to be the CEO. It can be any sponsor.
Of course.
Yeah. We were mentioning the CEO because of this example, but
exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe any upper manager, a manager who has enough authority, or who has been empowered with enough authority to run the project. Obviously, the manager is belonging to the board of directors, maybe much better because the visibility is higher.
Yeah.
But not necessarily.
Right. I understand. Perfect. Thank you so much for your comments, Alfonso. I would like to, for the listeners, I would like to give a little recap of the 5 rituals, or the 5 reasons why rituals support and strengthen portfolio and project management. The first one is that rituals are events that represent moving from a current state to a new state.
Yep.
The second one was that rituals are essential in maintaining structure and security in the everyday project life.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is that the power of the ritual lies in what it represents.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is that rituals indicate a sense of renewal, like the identity that we discussed. And the last one is actually that rituals illustrate identity changes, and that's more related to change management as well.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your comments. I believe everyone who wants to implement PPM practices now understands better that they can use rituals to improve project performance, to change habits, to add value to the stakeholders as well. And I believe that if people recognize the reasons why rituals can strengthen PPM, they can achieve higher team results. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. I think people can do it, organization can do it. And only this, my last message will be, only they believe they can, they will be able to do it. So that is one of the principles. But for me, as I told you, the sponsor of that initiative is crucial to accelerate the success, because I also believe in other circumstances in which the sponsor was not supporting too much, and it was an effort from the bottom to the top, but it was harder and longer.
Longer, yes. Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for commenting. I will stop recording now.
Thank you.
If I can, I'm not sure actually. Don't know if I can while we are still talking. So I'll just leave it on. But okay. Alfonso, thank you so much. We'll cut out whatever comes after here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yep. Yes, you too. You too.
Once we have some snippets of this interview, we'll share them with you so you can share them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.